Hey folks, it's Tom, your Frugal Prepper. Just so you know, I have an extras channel, and I will put a link to that down below. I have a channel called Network Engineers Playground. I put some computer stuff on there. You can check that out. And I fix cars now, and I buy them on Facebook Marketplace. I fix them up. I fix all the problems with them. I do YouTube videos, and then when they're all fixed, I give them away to somebody in need for free. So feel free to follow that journey on Patreon, and you can join Patreon for free and see all my content over there. But you can also just give me $1 a month, and all that money will go towards help fixing cars. Alright, so today we're going to talk about gardening and what is a carnivore doing growing a garden. Well, I first want to say that I'm not 100% carnivore. I was for about 3 to 6 months, but I started to reintroduce some limited vegetables, and I don't eat this every day. A lot of times I just eat chuck roast and fried and bacon grease, and I eat that and I'm fine. But occasionally I like some vegetables. I actually enjoy them, but I'm very selective about the types of vegetables that I eat. So just so you can see, this is cucumbers back in here that are starting. A couple of them have started to come up already. I have a couple of these orange hat tomato plants. These give you little tiny cherry tomatoes that you can eat over the winter. These are about played out, but I grew these over the winter. And then over here, all of this area over here is spaghetti squash that I'm going to grow. And then we'll come over here to the other side. And what we have here is celebrity tomatoes, some brandy wines, just a few tomato plants, and I'll pick out 4 or 5 of the best ones and I'll grow those. I don't eat many tomatoes, but I do like tomatoes now and then. I have King of the North peppers, some banana peppers, some monster peppers, and some hot chili peppers. And I'll grow a few of those plants as well. I always plant more than I grow because you want to pick the best plants possible to put in your garden. I have some Queen's Table squash, some butternut squash in there as well. And there's my kitty Waffles. Hi Waffles, what are you doing? Leave those jars alone. Oh man, he's something else. Alright, so I just use some potting soil and mix it up. I put a little bit of the Mittlighter weekly feed in it and mix it all together, pre-moisten it, and then plant my seeds in it. It's really pretty simple. Those cucumbers are in those little tiny ones because I'm going to use those out on the front hanging planters, and I'll transfer them to the hanging planters. And they'll probably go out in a week or two after that into the average day of last frost here is May the 15th, so we still have a while. And then the tomatoes will go out more towards, tomatoes and peppers can go out more towards the end of May, beginning of June, because they don't really grow any faster during those early colder nights. But why do I grow this food, right? What is the deal? You hear a lot of people say on the carnivore diet, they're very anti anything plant, anything, so I want to say first, yes, I believe you can live on 100% meat, perfectly healthy, perfectly fine for the rest of your life. Eskimos do it, lots of people do it, right? And they're strong and healthy, and they live great lives. But I like some plants. I love plants. I think they taste good. And so why do some people on YouTube, Dr. Chaffee, say plants are trying to kill you? Well, that's true. Plants do try to kill you. They do toxify you. And so, but you have to look at what type of plant you're eating. If you're eating spinach and leafy greens and stuff like that, that's not, those plants don't want to be eaten. They don't want to be eaten, right? They don't want their leaves eaten. They're putting toxins in those, right? Oxalates and other toxins to make you sick and not want to eat them. Now, one way you can kind of remove some of that toxic effect is to boil the crap out of it until it's mush, right? And that will help to detoxify it. And then, you know, cover it in some butter and salt. But you're eating raw leafy greens, you're just getting a world of inflammation and feeling like crap. And you won't realize that you're even having that amount of inflammation until you go like on a carnivore diet and clean all that up, and then you start walking around like you're 20 again, and then you eat something, a plant that's not healthy, and you get inflammation, and then you'll realize like, oh, that's why I felt this way before. I can't eat that. But plants also have a symbiotic relationship with animals, and humans are animals, and they want animals to eat their fruit because the fruit contains the seeds, and they want the animals to go poop out the seeds somewhere or throw out the seeds. You know, if you're cleaning up spaghetti squash, you clean out the seeds and you throw them out, and they grow more spaghetti squash where you throw them or where you poop. That grows the plants, right? Birds eat the berries and they poop them out, and they poop out the seeds, right? You know, we eat the berries, we poop out the seeds somewhere. And some of those seeds survive, and they have good fertilizer, and they grow a new plant. So that's how plants reproduce. That's how they move around. That's what they do. They don't have legs, they can't walk and plant their seeds. So yes, most of the plants on this earth are poisonous to humans. There's a very small percentage we could eat and tolerate, and of that there's even a smaller percentage that's not terrible for you. So spaghetti squash, I used to love pasta, and you know, there's spiral zucchinis and all this different stuff you can do, and the zucchinis you have to like bake them and get the moisture out of them, and it's just a big pain in the butt. Spaghetti squash is a low carbohydrate. There's 6 grams of carbs for a cup of it, and it's delicious. You just slice it up, put it in the oven for a half hour, use a fork, and it turns into spaghetti. And you put some sauce on there, like some Alfredo sauce that you make from some heavy whipping cream, butter, and Parmesan cheese. Or I make a pasta sauce out of my garden, and I occasionally have pasta sauce, but mostly I have Alfredo. But I'll go through 6 or 8 jars, pint-sized jars of pasta sauce. And again, I make that out of my own garden, so I'm not adding things like preservatives, high fructose corn syrup, sweeteners of any kind, you know. And so it's a more healthy for you pasta sauce than this stuff you buy in the jar at the store. But I love spaghetti squash, so that's why I have so many spaghetti squash plants, because I eat that sometimes 4 times in a month and sometimes once a month. But I love spaghetti squash. There's always extra left over, so you have a few meals, and you can make some big chunky meatballs out of some pork and hamburger and throw in there, and it's delicious. The peppers, I don't have any inflammatory problems with peppers. In fact, hot peppers help reduce the inflammation for me. So I love peppers. I don't eat them every time I cook some chuck roast, but I do eat them once in a while, right? And I like to chop them up with some onions and put them in the chuck roast and fry that up in some bacon grease, and I'll put sometimes some ground cumin and some chili powder in there and make it kind of like a Mexican thing. And that's all fine with me. It doesn't seem to cause any inflammation or any problems at all. The tomatoes, again, I only grow a few of those plants, right? If I have extra tomatoes, more than what I need, I'll give them away. In the past, I've grown a ton of tomatoes. I put a ton of tomatoes back and canned them. And I've given a lot of those cans away, a lot of those jars away at work. I have fewer jars now than I had before because I just don't eat as much stuff from the garden. But I do also can meat, so I have meat. But I do like a tomato. Now, tomatoes that you get at the store are green tomatoes. And yes, they look red because they I forget the name of the gas, but they gas them with this gas and it turns them red, makes them look ripe, makes them even taste a little riper, but they're not like a ripe garden tomato, right? And green tomatoes aren't ready to be eaten yet. Their seeds aren't mature. They're not mature, so they have more toxins in them than a ripe tomato that's ripened on the vine has, because it's ready to be eaten. And it wants somebody to eat it and go poop out its seeds. So, yeah, growing your own tomatoes are a lot less toxic than buying store-bought tomatoes. And like ketchup, it's made from pretty much ripe tomatoes most of the time, but ketchup has a whole lot of high fructose corn syrup and sugar and all kinds of stuff in it. It's really bad for you. I do occasionally make a ketchup with no sugar in it from garden tomatoes. It takes a long time to boil that down to get it thick enough, but it's pretty good. But I really don't eat it anymore. I haven't had any in almost a year now, so I mean I still have some in jars, but I don't know if I'm going to eat that. I grow some other kinds of squash. The table queen squash and the butternut squash. Table queen's relatively low in carbohydrates, about 4 grams for a half a cup. And the butternut is, I think, 8 grams for 3/4 of a cup. So those are occasional treats. I'll slice those up, I'll boil them, or I'll cook them and, bake them in the oven and have them with some butter. You can throw a little cinnamon on there too. It makes it kind of like a dessert-ish kind of thing, and it tastes really good, but it's a very rare thing. That's why I only have a couple of those plants. I also grow green beans. I grow Kentucky Wonder. Normally, sometimes I grow, I forget what they are, but they're another type of bean. I think they're blue ash or something bean, but they're pole beans, so they produce beans all throughout the season. You go out there once a week and pick them and then can them, and then you have green beans. And I always pick them while they're really young so they don't have big beans in the middle, ideally, because the big beans are full of carbohydrates, not great for you. But the shell of the bean is pretty good. I don't have any problems with them. They're pretty good. But that's just something else that when I want some kind of veggie, I'll have a green bean. I occasionally eat some broccoli that's frozen from the store. Broccoli is not good. It is a flower that has not turned into seeds yet. It does not want to be eaten, right? It's very inflammatory, but I do occasionally have a little bit of it with some fish. I will eat some Brussels sprouts once in a while as well, but that's very occasional. And I don't know if Brussels sprouts are inflammatory or not. I do like sauerkraut, so I eat that. And I don't make it myself. I buy it in a can because it's a pain to make. I do have some equipment over there for making it, but I just haven't ever got around to trying it yet. All right, so what do I do with peppers? I dehydrate peppers, and I grind some of them up into a powder after they're dehydrated, and I use that for my cooking. I'm out of dehydrated peppers right now, so I'm waiting on them to come in this year, so I'll have some more, because I didn't really get any peppers last year, so I was using the previous year's peppers, and I'm out. But I can most of my stuff, like the green beans, I can those, and I eat them once in a while. I also do can up some celery. I don't grow celery. It's just too long of a growing season here, and too many things that like to eat celery like bugs that just doesn't do well. So I buy my celery when it's on clearance and I chop it up and I can it. I have some crushed tomatoes in this jar, so that's good. I also can things like meat, right? So this is chuck roast, and this was canned in November of last year, so it's not that old yet. But I've eaten this one; it's been in here for like 10 years before, and it's always been fine. I make dill pickles out of the cucumbers because I do like pickles, and I still eat pickles. But 90% of what I eat is meat, and I add a little bit of this veg once in a while as a treat. It does fine for me. And I really like growing plants. I enjoy that process. Doesn't mean that I have to grow everything and eat everything, though. Just growing them is good enough. But I like to grow what I can eat. If I have extras, I'll take them into work and give them away. I'll give away extra tomatoes, any extra spaghetti squash. If I just end up with hundreds of them and I'm never going to eat that many, I'll give them away. And so, yeah, that's what I do. I've kind of come around. So I started out like keto, lots of veggies. Then I went dirty keto, and that didn't work. And then I came back to a really clean carnivore. And now I'm starting to reintroduce a few of the vegetables that are the least inflammatory as possible that I really like, and have some. I don't think that you have to have vegetables to live. You can live 100% healthily and probably healthier on just meat and a very anti-inflammatory diet. But some of us like to have a treat once in a while, so I do. Basically, whether you do a clean keto diet, a ketovore diet where you are like me, mostly meat but a few veggies, or you do a lion diet and only eat beef, I think that you're going to improve your health tremendously. And I also think a big part of this is how sick you were from your standard American diet when you started carnivore, right? Some people are just really sick and they can only do meat. They can't do any plants, or they get inflamed and bad things happen. Other people can do a lot of vegetables and they're fine. And some people can just do a little veggies like me, and that they stay on track that way and things are good. So I don't eat many vegetables. I don't really eat any fruit. I will occasionally, I have raspberry plants in the backyard, so occasionally I will have a handful of raspberries, but I don't like bring them inside and make jelly out of them and add sugar or anything like that. I just let the birds have what I don't eat, and that's pretty much the only kind of like fruit or berry that I have. Although technically tomatoes are a fruit, not a vegetable, but we won't go there. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. This is Tom, your Frugal Prepper.